and therefore I have sailed the seas and come to the holy city of Los Angeles. First of all, congratulations to Eloise Klein-Healy, who's the poet laureate. Thank you all for coming, and as you know, I'm Jack Foley, and Adelle and I are delighted to be in Southern California, where we always have a good time. We'd like to thank Richard Modiano and Beyond Baroque for giving us this opportunity. We're very grateful. We'd like to thank Evan Carr, who's a wonderfully interesting person. He's a poet and a videographer and an impresario. I mean, I can't describe Evan, it's impossible, but he's here and videotaping for us, and that's very, very kind of him. Thank you, Evan. And thank you for coming. I see many, many friends, many fine poets in the audience. Some of whom are reading and some of whom are not. That's very nice of you to come even though you're not reading. And Brandon Maggart and Maud Maggart are in the audience, and I think that's marvelous too. Brandon is fascinating because poets are writers who try to become performers. Brandon is a performer who wants to become a writer and has become a writer. He has a book. I'm going to be interviewing him. So thank you both, and stick around for the reference to Marshall Bearer. It's at the end, though. Tonight's event is a celebration of my rather massive book, Visions and Affiliations, which is in 2 volumes and weighs in at over 1,000 pages. I'll just read you something. All these quotations, and I'm not going to tell you who said them, you'll find that in the book. These quotations are all from the 1940s, and that's of some significance. Roosevelt, incidentally, was alive when this first quotation was written. Roosevelt died and met Wilson, who said, "I blundered into it." I propose to discuss a group whose only salvation is in the struggle of all humanity for freedom and individual integrity, who have suffered in modern society persecution, excommunication, and whose intellectuals, whose most articulate members, have been willing to desert that primary struggle, to beg, to gain at the price, if need be, of any sort of prostitution, privilege for themselves, however ephemeral, who have been willing, rather than to struggle towards self-recognition, to sell their product, to convert their deepest feelings into marketable oddities and sentimentalities. He's talking about gays. The bulk of the world's fictionable materials would be forever assigned to destruction, directly and indirectly, and become a tool for political world power jockeying, would be completely or almost fully lost in their greatest potentials as effective substitutes for fuel, power, heat, and medicinal cure. Again, from the 40s. A demon may be almost wholly deprived of being in large areas in which theoretically he ought to exist, and at the same time may have achieved an extraordinary degree of actuality in the regions in which he does exist. And when this happens, his persuasive power, his possessive power, is enormous. Our only protection against him is the critical faculty, of which I fear we have far too little. She was married, and she was not married. She always stammered when they asked about her status. I am touched by the marvelous, the savage fruit of lunacy. Oh, anxiety, abide with me, anxiety. So I guess you might say we're a beef generation. The dominant centers of publication were largely closed to us. I read the wild wallpaper of my heart. You'll have to read the book to find out who said those things. My book is, to use Donald Sidney Fryer's term, a chrono-encyclopedia of California poetry from 1940 to 2005. It covers all of California, but tonight is particularly a celebration of the South. British poet critic Donald Davies suggests that because the history of the Western states Both the brief recorded history and the much longer unrecorded history of the indigenous Indian peoples is a history of human movement, and the still largely empty landscapes of these territories are images of nomadic life. The West functions as an arena for human life, to which the imaginative response is still, as it always has been, to move, to keep moving. Against this, Gary Snyder insists that the mobility that has characterized American life is coming to a close. As Americans begin to stay put, it may give us the first opening in over a century to give participatory democracy another try. That both these elements, moving and staying put, are elements of Western consciousness is without doubt. Shane is on the side of the settlers, but he is himself a deeply nomadic figure who disappears at the end of the film, leaving behind him an image of a life that many envy, but few emulate. I wrote these introductory remarks about the book. Visions and Affiliations, a California Literary Timeline, Poets and Poetry 1940 to 2005, is a chrono-encyclopedia of a scene that stretches over 65 years. People, ideas, and stories appear, disappear, and reappear as the second half of the century moves forward. Poetry is a major element in this kaleidoscopic California scene. It is argued about, dismissed, renewed, denounced in fury, asserted as divine, criticized as pornographic. Poetry is as Western as the Sierra foothills, and the questions raised here go to its very heart.
Would you
beginning with
the mic closer, please?
Okay, you're having trouble hearing me?
Thank you.
Okay, we did a mic check. Is this better?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, could you hear most of that?
Yes.
All right, I'm not going to repeat it. Okay. California authors keep generating massive anthologies in an attempt to tame the chaos of California, to pretend it isn't there. Yet there it is, staring them in the face like a great bear, alive, hungry, and more than a little dangerous. Names: William Margolis, Jerome Rothenberg, Paul Evangelisti, Stuart Z. Perkoff, Philomene Long, the Watts Writers Workshop, Lawrence Lipton, Tommy the Commie, The Temple of Man, Sarah McLeay, Beyond Baroque, Wanda Coleman, Henri Coulette, Tony Sabella, Suzanne Loomis, Kate Gale, Robert Peters, the Coastline Poets, the California Quarterly Poets, Robert Nathan, Estelle, Gershko and Novak, David St. John, Will Alexander, Amy Uematsu, John Thomas, La Loca, Peter J. Harris, Charles Goins, Jack Grapes, Amy Gersler, Catherine Daly, Benjamin Saltman, Frankie Rios, William Pillen, Donald Sidney Fryer, Marilyn Chin, Ray Armentrout, Dana Joyer, Harry Polkinghorne, Timothy Steele, Leslie Mansour, R.D. Armstrong, Gerald Lachlan, Michael C. Ford, Wallace Berman, Semina, with the examples quoted, Laugh Literary and Man the Humping Guns, with examples quoted, etc. How many histories of California are likely to include James Boyer May, or for that matter, Jim Morrison, whose poem The Opening of the Trunk is in the book? They're all Southern Californians, and they all appear in Visions and Affiliations. Unfortunately, despite the size of the book, there are no doubt many important figures I do not discuss at length or even name, often simply because of my ignorance of their work. I've tried to give space and commentary to as many people as I could, to honor what Elena Kim calls the legitimacy of differing representations of reality. And I have deliberately not limited myself only to the famous. I realize that I have necessarily been unfair to many. May books other than mine give them their proper place in the California sun. Tonight, we have a great many readers, some of the people I've mentioned in my list. I've asked them to read in alphabetical order, and I've asked them to read only material from Visions and Affiliations. I'm grateful for their support of my book. I'd like you to come away not only with a sense of the excellence of California writing, but with a sense of its sheer diversity, its nearly chaotic nature. We're going to begin properly with the avant-garde. Please welcome Will Alexander.